and Sonic is just like, well, I guess I'll just fall in this hole.
Super Mario Brothers couldn't exist without Pong, or like those games, like what is it called, Space Combat or Space Wars or something like that.
Space Invaders?
No, not that one.
The first game ever made is not Pong. It is
Space something, Star
Space
something.
War? I think it's like Space War.
The nerd played it at that convention that he showed in his video. Space War. Space War. That's the one.
Is it Space War? I thought it was. Yeah. That was the first video game ever made, and it was not really like you couldn't like necessarily go to arcades and play it because it was on like a giant fucking
computer. But yeah, I think Super Mario 64. I think it took video gaming in a much. It took it much further into the future than Super Mario Bros. Did.
I would agree with that.
I would have to agree with that. I think Mario 64 revolutionized gaming more than.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think it's.
I think like Super Mario Brothers like set an example that all games afterwards tried to follow, but it's not like it was the first
side scroller.
The first side scroller, but there was Mario 64 was like the first of its kind. Like the reason people emulated it was because it was the first of its kind, not because it was
the best of its kind.
The best of its kind, yeah.
I think just with the like analog control, being able to go wherever you want, and like the sort of open worldedness of it, and the
being able to walk or run depending on how hard you push. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just did so much more than Super Mario Brothers did. I think it's... And every game to this day, like, owes a lot to Super Mario Brothers. Like, every game that uses analog control owes Super Mario 64. And that's why I think it's the most important game to ever be released. Like,
what about dual analog control?
No game since has changed the gaming world like Super Mario 64.
I'll tell you, that's completely true. But I said this when Mario Galaxy came out. Like, when I played Mario 64, it rocked my balls off. I was like, I can't believe we live in a world where technology can produce this kind of game. And like, Mario Sunshine came out, and I was like, yeah, of course. Like, this is a neat game, you know? Like, there's nothing in Mario Sunshine. There's not a single thing that is like a game changer or revolutionary. You know, it's just a good game. But when Mario Galaxy came out, with all the crazy gravity and just like the controls being how they were and like the how creative the level designs were, I had that same feeling as I did when I played Mario 64 for the first time. I was like, wow, I can't believe that this game is technologically possible. You know.
No, I agree with that, but I don't think Galaxy
I don't think it revolutionized.
Yeah, it didn't revolutionize gaming like 64. I think Galaxy is a better game.
I'm just saying, like,
I don't
Galaxy
think it's
was the first game, Mario or otherwise, that I played after Mario 64 that gave me a feeling of like, wow, I'm surprised that this was doable. You know, that was the first time that was only the second time in my life that it had happened to me, and they were both with Mario games. That says a lot, you know.
Mario, changing the way we look at video games.
That's part of why Nintendo's probably always going to be my favorite video game company, because they do more to try to innovate, and even when it doesn't work, they've always been the innovators, you know. Ever since the NES, they've been the ones innovating the gaming industry, you know. And like sometimes it doesn't work, like the Virtual Boy. Sometimes it only sort of works, like the Wii, you know. But
sometimes it gets off to a slow start, like the 3DS.
Yeah, whether it works or not, you have to give them props, because they've always been the innovators. They're always trying to come up with new and interesting ways to play games, and I have so much respect for them.
They've always been the one to get ripped off, then.
Yeah, they have.
Unfortunately, that's also true. Yeah.
And I don't understand how there can be any hate for Nintendo, like, by anybody, but like there's a ton of hate for Nintendo. I don't get it.
Because Nintendo
Has childish
never-
characters.
No, yeah, they never. I said this a little while ago. There's a really great quote from, I believe it was C.S. Lewis, about how when you get old, you give up immature things like trying to be mature. And like Nintendo never shed their childlike wonder and tried to be, super serial. There's this really immature mindset that, like, if you're not playing mature games, then you're wasting your time. Fucking the 7-year-old that I babysit grew out of Sonic the Hedgehog because there's no blood in it. And I swear to God, he said this to me once about Sonic Colors, and it was the first time that I wanted to punch a child in the face.
Oh, he's 7, Ricky.
I didn't, obviously. Okay, I'm not a monster, but like I was very upset because he said that Sonic Colors would be better if it had guns.
Did you tell him play Shadow the Hedgehog? That game's awesome.
I'm like, you are the reason Shadow the Hedgehog exists, and I am not okay with that. Like, that's the thing. That's what makes Shadow the Hedgehog so laughable and so impossible to take seriously. Is that they made it for 7-year-olds, like the one that I babysit. They honestly thought in their heads that Sonic with guns would be cool, and that's just the most immature thing I could possibly think of. And Nintendo has never really
tried that.
Fell victim to that. They're not immature like that. They think, we're gonna make fun games that anybody can enjoy. They're not making games for kids. They're making games for everybody. And some people are just too immature to deal with that.
Going back to that, I was the only time I would think that maybe they would try to do that was with Twilight Princess, and I don't think that's the reason why. I think it was like a darker game compared to like other Zeldas.
You know what, Josh? I think it is a darker game compared to other Zeldas, but I disagree. I think they totally did that because the fans were pissed off about Wind Waker at first.
Yeah.
I think they caved into the fans for once, and it bit them in the fucking ass. That's what I think. That's
exactly what happened. And you know what the biggest... No. I'll explain this real quick. The kids that I babysit are very polite. They ask, like, may I have blank blank blank?
They tell you suck at video games and want your best friend to kill you.
Okay, well, maybe they're not that polite. But the youngest one, who's 5, turning, I think he turned 6 last year, actually. He likes to, for whatever reason, he calls things by like their full names, like, the Nintendo 3DS, or we play motion, you suck at it.
I do.
Well, like he calls everything by its full name, like the Nintendo Wii, the Sony PS3 or whatever. And when I usually when I babysit, it's because the parents are out at a bar or whatever, or at a party. I have to put the kids to bed, so like I was putting them to bed, and I had just been, before that, I had been showing them like the sound thing, how you can record sounds and screw it around and play with it and stuff. And the youngest one, he's like getting ready to go to bed. He's like, "Can I have the Nintendo 3DS? Like, can I take it to bed?" And I'm like,
"No, that's like counterintuitive."
I still had the sound thing open, and I was like, "No, I don't have the Nintendo 3DS." And the one that screams is the middle child, 7, who he realized that I was recording and he wanted to screw me up, so he was like, "Ah!" You can hear him. And I saved it for that long because I thought it was just so funny. Like, as I'm saying, "No, you may not have the Nintendo 3DS," like really jokingly, you hear the middle child go, "Ah!" And I sent that to everybody.
Yeah, I got that. It's pretty funny.
I just really sure because I think it's so funny. But anyway, the thing about Twilight Princess is that I think I'm with Matt, they totally caved to pressure from people who thought Wind Waker was too cartoony. So they're like, all right, let's make this game like as gritty and dark and as brown as we possibly can.
Let's make it look like everything else on the market right now.
What really bothers me about that is not that they
Did it?
It's not that they tried it. It's that it's so transparently. You could tell that they're trying so hard to make Twilight Princess so dark. And what bothers me about it the most is that you have a game like Majora's Mask that is so dark, and it just feels so natural. They didn't try to make it dark. They had this idea for a story, and they told it. And it's just a dark story. You know, the whole world's going to be destroyed. All these characters that you meet and that you fall in love with are going to die. And many of them are so bizarre. Fucking Romani gets lobotomized if you don't do the one alien mission. It's just such a dark game, and it comes about so naturally. It's not forced. Twilight Princess is forced. They wanted it to be dark, and they tried. They went out of their way to make it dark, and it's so transparently obvious that it doesn't work. You know, it was so afraid to be cartoony that the entire story suffered for it. Like, that bothers me more than the fact that the game is brown, you know?
Than the fact that the game is brown.
It is. It's a brown game. Play fucking Twilight Princess.
I've played Twilight Princess, Ricky. I know it's a brown game.
It's brown. And
I really don't remember anything from it, except for that girl with the afro.
Except that
You
it's
know-
brown.
You know why you don't remember anything from it?
Because it's bland.
It has no life. There's no. It was so afraid to be cartoony that none of it has any life to it, and like, it sucks because I think the story's kind of interesting. I think Midna's awesome. I think some of the NPCs are really awesome and memorable, like Telma and Agatha, but most of them are just really bland and brown and forgettable. Whereas in a game like
racist.
Majora's Mask, you just have these fiercely memorable characters, and it comes off naturally.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't try to make Majora's Mask dark. It just was, and it just worked. It just felt right. Twilight Princess doesn't quite feel right.
Yeah, sorry, Josh. I disagree with you on the front of Twilight Princess.
No, I didn't know they did it just because of
Well, there's no
fans complaining.
that's not proven or anything, but
Yeah, we don't know that either, but
But
It's heavily implied.
yeah, it was the very next game after.
That's well,
Waker.
yeah.
There was such a huge outcry with Wind Waker, which is so unwarranted.
Because it has like the best art style in any
Best
video
style?
game ever made.
Yeah.
That game is fucking gorgeous.
Even today,
Like,
go play it now. It still looks great.
It still
Yeah,
looks
it
good.
does.
It looks better than Melee or
Yeah.
like a lot of other GameCube
It's
games.
the best looking game on the GameCube, bar none.
It
Like
still
I think
looks-
the Metroid Prime games look great, but I think the art style in Wind Waker holds up way better.
hmm
But Metroid Prime is the second best looking.
I actually think Mario Sunshine still looks pretty nice. Actually, like it's sort of semi cell shaded. They didn't quite go all the way, but there's sort of a cartoon cell shadedness to it, and I think it works pretty well. I think it still looks nice today. I think it looks better than Twilight Princess, which was like the last game on the GameCube.
Or the first game of the Wii.
Yeah, you'd think that, you know, they would have just Twilight Princess is such a missed opportunity. That game is good, and it should have been fantastic. You know what I mean?
hmm
It should have been a masterpiece, and it's just good.
Yep.
So
I feel like that would have been a good podcast because I
it-
feel like.
Well,
It
yeah,
could've been.
I'm glad this is on the stream because I'm probably gonna put it up.
okay. As what were we talking about though?
I don't
Twilight
know. I'll
Princess.
just put it up as Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, okay.
And then you get a nice dose of Super Mario and Twilight Princess.
We do occasionally have really interesting conversations.
Sometimes.